Kia ora and welcome to Muffin Talk. Muffin Talk is a weekly radio program to which I invite guests to talk about their work and their passion for issues on community programs, social justice, Bible studies, interfaith relations, or the Catholic Church. Today, I've invited Fr Bernard Espiritu to a Zoom recording for a broadcast. Father Bernard, a warm welcome and hi to our radio program.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you.
Fr Bernard Espiritu is originally from the Philippines, and he belongs to the Divine Word Missionaries and has been the New Zealand National Director for MissioNZ since 2012. His work on missionary assignment includes South Brazil, Australia, and North America. Father Bernard, could you please say a few words about the charism and the focus of the Society of the Divine Word to which you belong?
Yeah, our congregation was founded in Holland, actually, by a German priest, now called Saint Arnold Jansen. And that was the time of the culture camp that he could not establish the religious congregation in Germany. So he crossed the river, and on the other side, he started the seminary. In fact, the only building that he could afford, or the only place that he could afford to start the new foundation, was a pub. And so they said, so we drink, smoke we don't, so we drink. And this was in 1875. And Arnold Jansen was really inspired by the spirit that grew from his family, which was the Gospel of John, the first chapter, wherein it is said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That's the whole inspiration behind the name Divine Word Missionary. And it is said that every Sunday after the family of Arnold has been to Mass, they would sit down around the table at home, and the father, instead of just opening with the rosary, he would read the whole chapter of John, the Gospel of John, chapter 1. So for Arnold Jansen, that particular passage of the scripture made a big impact in his life. And one of the things that he started to really imbibe or live in his life is the idea of God becoming a human person, which means to say God becoming a missionary among us. Because in a way, well, maybe this is not a good analogy, but the whole idea of the concept of God being in heaven, and he, as the second person of the Trinity, was sent by the Father to us. And at the same time, living among us, he became, as he said in one of the passages of the gospel, only the person who has been in heaven would know what it means to proclaim heaven. So the missionary Jesus was the inspiration of Arnold Jansen. In our life as a missionary, right at the heart of our Constitution, it opens with the words, his life is our life, his mission is our mission. Divine Word Missionaries know right at the very core of their life that our mission is not ours. It's not our ambition. It's the mission of God wherein we are called to participate. So as Divine Word Missionary, it is very clear that we should continuously proclaim to everyone, wherever we are, that we all are missionaries, and that we would like that people grow into the spirit of mission. And what's the spirit of mission? It's that there is always a reaching out, and reaching out involves listening and also proposing something. I think that's the real core of what it means to be a missionary, to be able to listen to what people say, to be able to listen to the promptings of the Spirit in our time,
It
to
sounds
be
so
able
much like
to,
Pope Francis, because when he
yeah.
talks about missionary disciples, it's not just missionary, but disciples. So you're constantly learning. And
Yes.
so that fits very well. You must be very pleased about our Pope.
Oh, definitely. I was just maybe just a little anecdote which really happened to me. This was happening eh, Francis was elected, was it March of
Yeah,
2000 and
13.
yeah, 13? And the night before he was elected, I was in the South Island and I was sharing something with a group of people there. But on the way, I was with the priest, and in fact, the priest was a church historian. And one of the things that I asked him was, would it not be good that we will now have, or my question was there ever a pope called Francis? And then he looked at me. I could feel that he was looking at me as if I was so stupid, you know. But at the same time, he was very gentle and he said, why do you say that? And I said to him, would it not be time for the church to be rebuilt, you know? So the following day, early in the morning, I got a phone call from my sister in the Philippines. And he said, Bernard, wake up because there's already a pope and the white smoke came out. And I said, have you been sleeping? No, I'm waiting for this, she said. It was about, I think, 6:30 in the morning. So I waited before the TV and for almost like an hour or so. And when the cardinal came out and he said, Habemos Papam, and his name is Francisco, I said, what? So I think the spirit of Francis is the real, just by the fact of the name of Pope Francis. I think this is one of the things that we should really reflect on because the church really needs to be rebuilt. And one way of rebuilding the church is really to become missionary disciples. And this is the core, I believe. Well, Pope Francis coined the phrase very well, missionary disciples.
Correct.
And I think as divine word missionaries, um, we're just into it really,
Yeah.
you know.
And as I mentioned in my introduction, you have now been New Zealand National Director for MissioNZ for the last 10 years. So
Yes.
another missionary work. Can you tell us about MissioNZ?
Yeah. MissioNZ is really the Pontifical Mission Society. And this is an institute, so to say, a group. I would say this is what we may call the Pope's Charity. It's composed of 4 different societies, put it that way. The society or the group that works with children, the group that works with bishops, particularly to help them administer the diocese, like for instance, to help them in the catechetical programs, pastoral programs, things like that. And then the third group is a group that's organized something to help seminaries all over the world, because one of the tasks of the Pope is really to see to it that there would be ministers that would be serving the church, and particularly ordained ministers, no. And the third and the fourth group is to be able a group that is enabling or helping continuously the missionaries, both the clerics, the religious, and also lay persons who are actively working as missionaries in the field. Now, the Pope, sometime in the early 1900s, organized these 4 groups to be under one umbrella, which is called the Pontifical Mission Society. So the word is Pontifical Mission Society, and people sometimes think that it's so long. And so to remember, we cannot just put an acronym of PMS because it could be a word that is not really well taken in English, you know.
But
So the word,
pontifical comes from pontifex, from the Pope, right?
yes, that's why it's a Pope's charity in the sense of this is really under the Pope in the sense of this is part of the what we may call the evangelization program of the church.
Mhm.
And so to shorten the word, the phrase Pontifical Mission Society, nowadays we're trying to promote the word missio. And since it is in New Zealand, we say MissioNZ, but in reality, you will find that you put the word together, it comes out as missions, you know. So Father Shanahan was very clever in doing that. He was my predecessor. So what's the Pontifical Mission Society? It's the Pope's charity trying to coordinate work here in New Zealand. And I would say two major work is I could compare to the two hands of a person, the left and the right. It's very helpful to have two hands. Truly, we can just work with one hand, but if you have two hands, you can do more together. For me, the two hands of the Pontifical Mission Society is, first of all, one is what's really the essence of this work? And basically, that is what I call the evangelization part, the continuous education and sharing and attracting people that we all are missionaries and that we have a role to play to be able to reach out and bring the reality that God is alive in our midst. That's the first thing. We continuously, through our words and at the same time through our living, we invite people and at the same time make people aware that we all are missionaries. That's the first one, the evangelization part. The second part, I would say, is the fundraising part, because in reality, in our world, things will keep on moving if we are able to sustain it financially in a way. Because, well, if we continue to uh, attract people to believe that God is good, then at the same time, His goodness should be experienced in the daily living. There are people who are really struggling in life, and sometimes their struggle can only be enhanced by by the help that comes from other people. You know, a typical example of this was when I was working in Brazil in the missions there. People are really poor and they really work hard. But at the same time, we needed, for instance, in one place, a place to gather. They really did their best. They would sort of organize something to raise money among themselves and among their friends. And the building of the place was really a voluntary in the sense of this was the gift of many people who could not afford to give any financial help. They would work during the weekend or during the weekday. But at the same time, the work becomes very slow. But with the help of other people from outside the community, like for instance, I was able to get help from Germany, you know, and with that help, financial help, instead of building a small church for, say, 5 years, we were able to build that in 1 year. And therefore, we were able to use it properly and proper thing, you know, formation work, catechetical work could be done, and even gatherings of people. Because, like, for instance, in the community where I was, one of the communities that I was working, there was nothing, nowhere to gather. And so catechism happens under the tree, literally. But when it rains, there is no more catechism, you know. So we needed places like that. But places like that could only be constructed also with the help of other people from outside the community. So, what am I saying here? The work of MissioNZ or missions is really to be able to continuously encourage and form people to be missionary minded, in the sense of, let's listen to one another, let's look for a way wherein we could find God alive in this world by helping one another. Yes, and so as we listen, we also discern, and we have proposal on how to move on forward. But at the same time, the second part is, the other part of the hand is that we should be able to raise funds to help ourselves, yes, but more importantly, people who are in need really of help. So MissioNZ has that two tasks for me.
So if people in New Zealand are donating money, where does the money go to? Does it go to who decides on where the money is used? Because there
Yeah,
will be millions of projects, I assume, all around the world.
yes. What happens really is this: when there is a proposal from a community, they would send this to their bishop, and the bishop would know them, and at the same time discern with them, do they really need the project? Once they agree that it is necessary for the community, the bishop signs the proposal and sends it to Rome. The Secretariat General, the office in Rome of the Pontifical Mission, what they do basically is they harvest all the proposals, projects, proposal from all over the world. They classify them. And at the same time, while they classify them, they would see if there would really be funding that will be necessary. What is the priority that should be happening? So somehow there is a sorting in a way, but more it's putting them in groups really. There is a meeting, what we call the General Assembly of the Pontifical Mission in Rome, wherein the project is already, all the projects are presented, all those that are harvested, and then the plenary discusses that, if there are any objection to remove or to add any of those projects. And then once it is approved, the national directors are free to choose from all those projects that come out from the what has been approved by the General Assembly. So basically, uh, the each national director really has the freedom to choose where the money would go. And often my discernment is always this: what could be a way to say that we are supporting the churches that are near New Zealand, like for instance churches in the Pacific, if there is any project which sort of uh, um, be meaningful for us to support from New Zealand, and also projects that may be in distant churches, like for instance in Africa or somewhere else in Asia, you know. So
There
in
also
a way,
are there also projects in New Zealand?
uh, really, there are very few projects that are presented from New Zealand. There was once a regular help that we were giving. There was a group actually in New Zealand, which is sponsored also by the bishops, to what we call the lay people who are volunteering to work as missionaries in other countries, particularly, mostly then, those were lay missionaries that go to the Pacific, you know, to help out in whatever they could do as their specialization is. Sometimes mechanics would go to Papua New Guinea, for instance, or teachers going to Fiji or things like that.
That's like the work of Mahitahi earlier.
Yeah, actually we were supporting Mahitahi before, but right now somehow their work has been more toning down, so to say. So projects like that we were supporting from New Zealand, or there was the support also needed for a group in Wellington, wherein people from all over the world, and particularly from Asia and Pacific, would go for youth catechetical work, actually, which now the work has been suspended, actually, because there is no place, I think, that it could be continuing.
Yeah.
But very few projects coming from New Zealand, because New Zealand also is being taken care of by Caritas, and also by the bishops really are pursuing what could be used here in New
Yeah.
Zealand. But the money basically that we have is really sent to the missions, and only a part of it is used for the maintenance of the office.
Yeah.
And our office is very small. No. It's
And
only a
but
secretary, but nowadays it's only me, really.
it's a one-man show in New Zealand.
Yeah, there are diocesan directors, but all of them are really parish priests at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
So most of the time their only help is really what they can, the limited
Yeah.
thing they could do, and oftentimes it's really in the township where they work.
Father Bernard, you have already talked about the work in your last 10 years as a national director, but in short sentence, can you give an overview of what have been your challenges and the blessings of your 10 years as national director of MissioNZ?
The greatest challenge for me was at the beginning, because I was parachuted in New Zealand. I never worked in New Zealand. And when they offered, when my superior approached me, the SVD superior approached me if I would be interested to come, I said I would be very interested, because the work of the Pontifical Mission Society is a missionary work. However, it's not really for me, because to be a good missionary working in the Pontifical Mission, you got to know the people and the environment, the land. And I said, I really have not been to New Zealand, and I would be a stranger there. So I really didn't expect that they would take me in. The bishops would recommend me, and I was recommended by the bishops to be approved by Rome. At the beginning, it was really difficult, because when I arrived, pardon my ignorance, but I really was not sure where the South Island was and what the North Island is composed of. And on my second day, the secretary said to me, "Tomorrow, Father, you have a meeting in Palmerston North." I really didn't know where Palmerston North was. Thank you to the GPS. Because of the GPS, I got there. Anyway, that's one of the biggest challenge at the beginning, to really get to know the people and the land. And to be more effective, you got to have a little feel of what is really going on. And yeah, I would say also the challenge is that it's a country that is very secular. Unlike, for instance, Brazil or the Philippines, it's so sort of, you're at home bringing Christ because people have him already. Here, people are good. They are spiritual, put it that way. But it's hard to just use language of the past that I have been accustomed to, and really being creative in how to transmit the work of the Pontifical Mission is one of the challenges. So one way of doing this is to tell the stories of missionaries,
Yes.
instead of just saying this is mission, but bringing out to them. So in short, the challenge for me was, of course, big at the beginning, and it continues that way. Also, I think the blessing that I really find working with the Pontifical Mission Society is that there are really good people in New Zealand who believes in God, and somehow really they really would like the work of the Pontifical Mission to continue. So much as we are a small country and think of our small population, and only very few people are actively really proclaiming they are Catholics and would support the work of the Catholic Church, I would say the people of New Zealand has generously contributed to the support of the worldwide mission of the church. No?
Thank you
So these
very
are the
much.
blessings.
Thank you very much. That is really an important information, and also that we always need to look out to other countries also, because even though we are in an island here in New Zealand, but there are many other countries that we are connected to through faith, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much, Father Bernard. And
Thank
all
you
the
very
best
much.
for your next endeavor, for your next adventure. Who knows where you're going to be sent then?
Yeah.
A new
Okay.
country maybe, or in New Zealand with your experience now.
Yes. Thank you
Okay,
very much for
wonderful.
inviting. God bless you, and God bless all your listeners.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Okay.
Kia kaha and stay safe.